excited to participate in Dean Martin's in 2017.
I think your notes are wrong.
Okay. Dean Martin's Las Vegas tribute for her father's Dean's 100th birthday.
That was 2017.
It was 2017. In 1970, Liz toured with Bob Hope on the USO tours in Vietnam, performing for troops throughout the country. Liz's service to our veterans is notable and has continued throughout her life. As a part of her service, she makes appearances with Huey Helicopters here in town, and is currently lending her support to a new effort to build homes for displaced veterans. You know, this is going to be a lot of fun, and I don't want to take up any more time because you got a lot to say. And folks, without any further reservation, hesitation, Liz Kelly, one of the Goldiggers.
So please bear with me. And I brought my tissue just in case. I wanted to say thank you to Paul Chapa for this amazing opportunity to share with you all tonight. Thank you all for being here. Before I begin, I would like to know how many Army veterans are here tonight. Raise your hand. No Army. Navy? Air Force. Yeah. Coast Guard.
Hey.
1, 2. And finally, Marines. Oh yeah, I am a Marine baby. Yes. Are we lucky enough to have any World War II veterans in the audience?
Yeah. Right there. There's one.
Korean War? Nobody?
Really?
I don't think Max is here.
Any of my Vietnam veterans here? Yeah. How about Gulf War? Any vets from Afghanistan? Actually got to see a Bob Hope show overseas. Wow, that's awesome. Well, for those of you that didn't, I happen to bring a friend with me tonight, and hopefully somebody will... Hey, you missed your cue already. So, let me rewind.
There he is. Thanks for the memories.
Actually, I brought him for moral support. That's Bob. Okay, so here we go. It's hard to find words to convey my feelings for you all. I am humbled and I am honored to be in the presence of you, my heroes. I would like to express my sincere and deepest gratitude to you and to your families for your sacrifice and your service. That said, here's a little background on my life and how it changed during and after my journey to Vietnam. My family background has a military involvement, beginning with my dad, Captain George Kelly. He was a pilot with the Flying Tigers during World War II, headed by Lieutenant General Claire Chennault, best known for his leadership in the Flying Tigers and the Republic of China Air Force in World War II. While in China, my dad went to an officer's dance and met and fell in love with a local Chinese girl named Len Li from Tianjin, China. That was my mom. Upon leaving China, Dad dressed my mom in a pilot's uniform, snuck her on a plane he was piloting, and smuggled her all the way to the United States. And here I am. Oh, and there they are, yeah. They went to live in Revere, Massachusetts, my dad's hometown where his family resided. I was born in Revere, Massachusetts in 1932. Via several other destinations, we moved to Kansas City when I was 3 or 4, and then to the Raytown area when I was 9. I attended can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, St. Louis School, Westridge Elementary, Our Lady of Lourdes, and Raytown South Junior and Senior High Schools. Off and on, I also attended Loretto Academy, an all-girls school. My mom shuffled me there every time I got with my boyfriend in high school. Well, he later became my husband, so how did that work for you, Mom? Sadly, my husband was, not sadly, he was a Vietnam veteran, but he did pass away in 2008. He's greatly missed. But he was a Vietnam veteran, Air Force. Anyway, during this time I studied and I became a dancer. Yeah. The rest is history. I began dance classes at the age of 3 or 4 at Flaw Lewis in Kansas City, and then continued to several other teachers. My professional career began at Starlight Theater at the age of 7 years old, where I marched in the Music Man with a big trombone, up the steps and down the steps. But I gotta tell you, when I did that show and I got to the top of the steps and saw the audience for the first time, I was hooked. I mean, that was it for me, that I knew what I wanted to do. I became, at 14 years old, the youngest member of the Corps de Ballet at Starlight Theater, and I credit my success to my main teachers, Tanya at Conservatory of Music, and Harding Dorn, who was the choreographer at Starlight. Okay, so moving on, some of the major stars I worked with at Starlight, I later ended up working with in Hollywood. At Starlight, I worked with Tommy Toon, who, by the way, became choreographer for the Goldiggers for a couple of years. I was the only girl he had worked with outside of the Dean Martin show, so he knew my abilities. I worked with Dom DeLuise 3 times before Hollywood. Some of you are probably too young to know who that is. I won't mention who. He became a regular on the Dean Martin show. Also from Kansas City to Hollywood, John Davidson, Phyllis Diller, Angela Lansbury, Carol Channing, Cheetah Rivera, and many more, including Broadway star Ethel Merman, whose heart was also with our troops. Yeah. Since beginning my profession at age 7, I continued working at Starlight every summer through 1969, at which time I headed for California. I left for Hollywood after having enough credits to graduate a year early from Raytown South in 1969. I gained all my extra credits because my mom kept shuffling me to the girls' school to keep me away from the boys. Little did she know. Okay, my major goal in life was to dance with Gene Kelly, or to work with him, or to meet him, or to shake his hand. And that became the very first show I landed after Kansas City. We opened the Gene Kelly Wonderful World of Girls show in Las Vegas at what used to be the International Hotel. I think it's now called the Westgate Las Vegas Resort. Elvis was performing there while we were rehearsing the Gene Kelly show. We saw his show and were invited to his suite afterward. But our producer wouldn't let us go. I wonder why. We saw Ike and Tina Turner, they were also performing in the lounge at the same hotel. And a little side note, I just saw the Elvis movie and they showed the International Hotel quite a bit. So I sat in that chair just kind of going, whoa, where did time go? You know? Anyway, I lied about my age to get this job with my idol, Gene Kelly. I got in big trouble because I told them I was 18. I was 17. But I was going to turn 18 during the run of the show, so I didn't think anybody would notice. Yeah, well, I got caught when we went to get our sheriff's card, which is something that's required for you to have to work in Las Vegas. Fortunately for me, our producer got me out of that mess. I did not get fired. I did not get sent home. It was a close call. I didn't get fired, but I got the look. You know that look that's more powerful than any physical punishment you could get? Yeah. From there, Greg Garrison, producer of the Gene Kelly shows and the producer for the Dean Martin show, asked me to join the Goldiggers, which began my journey to meeting Bob Hope and the Goldiggers being invited to tour with him in Vietnam. Bob Hope was the main entertainer for the USO tours, United States Organizations, or as we call it, United States Overseas. This organization began in 1941. Bob Hope completed 57 USO shows and took them to several war zones throughout his career. He performed 8 tours to Vietnam starting in 1964 and finished his last tour in Guam and Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean in 1972. Before our tour in 1970, I made headline news. I overslept and missed all the send-off activities and almost missed the plane. I made the cab driver speed to the airport just in time to catch the plane taxiing down the runway. They stopped the plane mid-takeoff and literally threw my luggage on the plane, then threw me on after. Mr. Hope and the rest of the crew were silent as I rounded the corner to take a seat. Yikes. I thank God today there was no such thing as social media, and that it took a long time for my parents to get that news. Yet another time I didn't get fired, but I got the look. I got several looks that day. Mr. Hope thought my being late story was funny enough to put this stunt of mine in his book, The Last Christmas Show. The 1970 chapter is titled The Pot Boils Over. It was the 70s. I may or may not have fried some common sense brain cells. But I'll never tell. The major stars in the 1970 USO shows were Lola Falana, Gloria Loring, Johnny Bench, Bobby Martin, Ursula Andress, Miss World, Les Brown, and his band Renowned, and us, the Goldiggers. For safety, we stayed in a hotel in Bangkok and were flown in by helicopter to our destinations in Vietnam. You know, and the first thing, I just remember this, it's not even written down, but the first thing we did when we got off the helicopters were soldiers would show us where the foxholes were in case of an attack. That was eye-opening, yeah. The Vietnam War, here we go. I was 18 and I thought I was all grown up. Looking back through pictures, we were all babies. Yeah. Before that trip, war was something I'd only watched on television, and it was not real to me. After traveling to several war zones and visiting our wounded warriors, it didn't take me long to realize the devastating reality of war. War is very very humbling, and very frightening. It changed me and who I was going to be for the rest of my life. Seeing the war up close and visiting our wounded warriors in Vietnam made me put on my big girl panties and grow up fast. It humbled me and changed my values. From that tour on is when I became a true patriot. Thinking back on all the memories from that journey still touches my heart deeply, not only for our Vietnam veterans, but for any veteran of foreign wars and for all our soldiers still serving near and far. I had no idea the impact we and our shows had on our soldiers until I began working with veterans back home. A friend of mine shared an article from Christmas Day 1970 that I'd like to share with you, if that's okay. Is that okay?
Yes, okay.
His name was Rob Struck. He was a 21-year-old male clerk stationed with his unit in Phuoc Bin, about 55 miles north of the Army base in Long Bin, the site of Bob Hope's 1970 USO Christmas Day show. Struck's company commander gave permission to a dozen or so GIs to see the show, if they could find a way there and be back on duty within 24 hours. Struck quotes, "I jumped into the back of a Jeep and rode over 2 hours to Long Bin's huge outdoor amphitheater to see the show. We got there several hours before the show started, but the place was already jam-packed with soldiers, some 15 to 20,000 GIs, I was told. That was my view from the stage." Yeah. They were everywhere, sitting on the ground, on makeshift platforms, on cranes, and even atop light poles. I couldn't find a place to sit anywhere near the stage, so I sat with a bunch of grunts who were still packing their M16s. We were way up the hill. But I had my field binoculars. The band kicked in, Bob Hope came out on stage, and the crowd erupted. Hope greeted us with, "Hey fellas, it's great to be with you on Christmas Day. Here we are at the largest military installation in Southeast Asia, Long Bin. It sounds like the name of Dean Martin's wine cellar." The show lasted a couple hours nonstop. We laughed at all the jokes, sang along to the songs we knew, and oogled at the gorgeous babes. The show closed with all the cast joining Bob Hope to sing Silent Night. Sorry. They didn't get 30 seconds into the song before every one of us, all 15,000, joined in. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. He continued, "In my eyes, Bob Hope is a true American hero. The cast and crew as well. We knew they could be home with their families at Christmas, but they chose to be with us." Seeing Bob Hope's 1970 Christmas Day show was the highlight of my Vietnam tour. It helped me remember why I was there and why I wanted to get back home alive and in one piece. So, speaking of Silent Night, singing that song and staring at all those faces, knowing our soldiers were living in a not so silent night, tore my heart out. To this day, when I hear Silent Night, it takes me right back to those times, those feelings, those faces longing to be home. One of my fondest memories happened in Vietnam. Before we left the U.S., Bob Hope asked the whole crew if we knew anyone serving there. I did. I dated Bernie Bussman from Springfield, Minnesota. Bernie went to college at St. Benedict's, and I met him at the drive-thru at Winstead's on the plaza, which was really close to Boulder Fountain. Anybody visit there back in the day? That was my hangout. My mom wanted me to marry him. I didn't because he was a farmer. And back then, I didn't know that myself milking cows. So anyway, Bob Hope arranged for the MPs to pick him up from the DMZ and bring him to the show. I will never forget standing behind the stage waiting for him to arrive. He arrived and his eyes were like deers in the headlight. We hugged and we cried from way down deep. My 6-foot-tall, handsome Bernie collapsed in my arms. He had changed not only in looks, but also from the fun-loving guy I had once dated. His eyes spoke volumes of horror and sorrow. When I arrived home, I got a package from Bernie Bussman, and I brought this gift to share with you. On the front pockets it says, Liz Kelly, Goldiggers. And on the back it says, Bussman likes it. I thought, wait, that's not his name. And then I thought, oh, Bussman likes it. So, yeah, imagine this. Those used to fit me. What happened? I am still in touch with Bernie to this day. I just spoke with him a couple weeks ago. We shared some memories, and I will admit my eyes were leaking. He texted me the other day, and I got chills and tears. And I quote this text. Knowing you were coming over at Christmas time is all I thought about and talked about for 2 months on the DMZ. That gave me reason to stay alive and to help me recover from my injuries from a mortar attack. I wanted to see you, end quote. Well, Bernie did get to see me, and we share a bond that can never be broken. Funny how I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but the flashbacks and emotions from Vietnam are still as vivid as though they happened yesterday. I had a really hard time leaving Vietnam knowing what our troops were having to endure. On the lighter side, once again I got the look. Remember we were told not to drink the water overseas? Well, I did, and I became very ill. Mr. Hope was kind enough to give me his and the only bed on the cargo plane that hauled us back to the U.S. I came home on a stretcher. I was taken directly to the hospital from the plane. Before landing back in the U.S., several of the cast and crew started stashing jewelry and various other stuff on me because I didn't have to go through customs. The hospital staff must have thought I was extremely popular due to all the visitors I had picking up their jewelry and stuff. You know what stuff is. If I have to explain it, you weren't there in the 70s. When I returned to Hollywood, I continued with Dean Martin and the Goldiggers. We even had our own television show for 2 years called The Goldiggers Today. I got the look once again by getting married while under a 7-year contract that I had failed to read. I thought, contract, oh, money, sign it. I didn't read it. Oops. And in 1973, due to some work issues in Mexico, we, the Goldiggers, all disbanded. Greg Garrison then hired a whole new group. On returning to Kansas City in 1978, I appeared in many local television shows, commercials, print ads, voiceovers. I was also a legal secretary for 2 years for 3 attorneys, which is really a funny story because I couldn't type. I told them I could tap dance and lie on the phone, and I got the job. I began teaching dance at dance studios before I left LA and continued to do so in Kansas City before opening my own studio in 1984. I closed closed it 35 years later. My teaching career spanned a total of 45 years. Wow. During these years, I found my way into service for the Vietnam veterans, and I have continued to do so for the last 15 years. I'm a lifetime member of the Vietnam Veterans of America and the AVVA. I volunteer for my veterans wherever and whenever time allows. In retirement now, I spend my time working as a wardrobe/dresser assistant at Starlight, so I've really come full circle. I still teach privately and choreograph wedding dances. I work with my veterans, Chapter 243, Lee Summit. Thanks, Des. Chapter 243, Lee Summit has the Huey 970, an original that was flown in Vietnam and shot down 4 times. You can still see the bullet holes. We had veteran Phil Greco who flew in this bird and was shot down in it and thankfully survived. He passed away last year and is greatly missed. We also have 2 other veterans that flew Hueys. Most of the veterans who see this bird say that it was the most welcome sight and sound they ever heard in Vietnam. Phil Greco always wore a shirt that said, "I may be deaf, but I can hear a Huey a mile away." No one can estimate the number of lives the Huey has saved. My chapter raises money for the upkeep and storage of our beloved Huey. We sell products at events and contribute to veterans in need through many organizations. On Christmas Eve, we go to the VA, but we haven't been able to do that the last couple of years because of COVID, but hopefully we can get back to it soon. The most rewarding part of my volunteer work is pinning veterans with their 50-year anniversary welcome home pin and honoring them with the welcome home they never received after Vietnam. I give huge hugs and a listening ear to our heroes, some of whom to this day have not been able to share about their war experiences until they are with their brothers and sisters in arms. After all these years, I've watched grown men and women break down and cry with me when they finally receive their official welcome home. I am still amazed at how just giving a smile, a big hug, and a listening ear can help start the healing process of a soldier. Astonishingly, some veterans have shown me what a small world we live in by sharing actual pictures they took of me on stage during the Bob Hope Show in 1970. In 2016, I received the Vietnam Veterans of America President's Award for Excellence in the Arts, the President's Award for supporting our troops in Vietnam, and a special thank you award from different veteran organizations. Amongst many awards, these are by far my proudest honor. Oh wait, do you remember when I told you I had to put on my big girl panties? Okay, well, Chapter 777, I was speaking in Portland, Indiana, awarded me with my official big girl panties. It says big girl panties, back blast, right leg, left leg. They also gave me some socks that say this end up, right foot, left foot. So I cherish these. The sad thing is I used to think these look big, now I think they'll fit. I just don't know what's going on. So anyway, if you get a chance to get to Portland, Indiana, you should go to see the Soldiers Museum. It's quite impressive. Anyway, seriously, Vietnam was truly an amazing and eye-opening and life-changing experience. It was the journey of a lifetime. We traveled 24,600 miles 609 miles in 2 weeks, 3,900 miles around Bangkok and Vietnam. We entertained at West Point, Germany, Alaska, Korea, the JFK aircraft carrier, and Vietnam. Vietnam, all I can say is that this experience changed my priorities. It changed my life and lives deeply in my heart and soul. To sum it all up, I budded in my youth. I sprouted through my teenage years in song and dance with Gene Kelly, the Goldiggers, the Dean Martin Show, and our own television show. In 1970, I blossomed into reality during the Bob Hope Christmas tour to Vietnam. Today, I sometimes fall, but just like you, I just keep sprouting back up again. I want to live the last chapters of my life in full bloom and in living color, like the big peacock on NBC. In closing, I want to thank you and your veterans for the honor of being in your company tonight. Most of all, I thank you for your bravery, for your service and sacrifices for our country and for our freedoms. You know, after my dad passed away, I found a little handwritten note that said, "Love never dies as long as someone remembers." So as our late friend Bob would say, thanks for the memories. I thank you for the honor of sharing my memories with you and keeping them alive. I appreciate you. I love you. And may 2023 bring you all blessings of peace, love, laughter, and good health. To our veterans, my heroes, a sincere